Welcome back to the OC Forums, the future of law enforcement, presented by UC Irvine and UCI Health. My name is Will Swaim. I'm president of the California Policy Center. I'm also the moderator for this conversation. We want to talk first with this really exciting group here because they sort of answer a problem that has been raised in our conversation with District Attorney Todd Spitzer and with Sheriff Don Barnes. And that question is, what's the public's role in the future of law enforcement? There have been calls for defunding police. We've got problems with homelessness that the police are dealing with mental illness and drug use. We've got immigration issues that have popped up. I think a lot of this seems beyond the capacity of most of us to deal with in our everyday lives. But this group of people here is involved in a unique project that I think may answer some of our desire to get involved locally and help with criminal justice reform in a way that probably makes criminal justice maybe an academic question. That is, that we intervene really early in the lives of our neighbors. So with us today, we've got Senator Josh Newman, representative from District 29, that's North Orange County, LA, and San Bernardino, I believe. I've got all of those. Is that right, Senator?
That is correct, yes.
Terrific. Great. And I've got from the North Orange County Public Safety Task Force, I've got, pardon me, Sue Kang, who's representing that organization. That's primarily what we're going to be talking about here. And then also my new friend, Letty Gali. She's a public nonprofit organizer who works in some communities. She's going to describe for us our work there. But Senator, why don't you start off by telling us what the task force is about? I'm frankly embarrassed to admit I was unaware that it exists. It sounds pretty novel. Can you describe how it was set up and what its purpose is?
Sure, that proves we need to tell our story a little bit better, but it is a good story. So thank you for having all of us, Will. The North Orange County Public Safety Task Force is a 10-city collaborative endeavor to get at the root causes of homelessness, youth gang violence, and post-incarceration reentry in 10 cities in the North Orange County area. The genesis of the project was actually almost exactly 4 years ago today, during my first term in office. And I had a meeting with a bunch of chiefs of police and some city administrators from my district. And they came to me with a fairly non-profound observation, which was these problems, particularly homelessness, are very hard to solve at the municipal level, especially for small cities. And so, they had an idea for a smarter kind of mini regional approach. And so my own observation, sort of coming the other way, was these problems are clearly very hard to solve from the top down, from Sacramento on down, given California's size and complexity. And so I submitted a budget request in the 2017-2018 budget process for the funds that have now funded this program. And it's a really interesting model that as you'll hear, has really sort of interesting implications and potential for replication. But what it does is we have 10 cities that receive funds, and each city receives funds that are split 40-60 between public safety to augment the local police department or sheriff's deputies in their work liaisoning with folks in need. But what it also does is it takes 60% of each city's grant and engages local community-based organizations like Letty's that have expertise and interest and relationships with some of the communities that need serving. And what it has done is it has aligned the efforts of not only the cities across this fairly big area, but also within cities, so that you have chiefs of police and staff who are now working closely with local organizations that they had not prior known each other, and therein lies some real efficiencies and the basis for some progress. One of the most promising features of this whole program is through this process, we have developed a program, an application called Outreach Grid, and that allows, and I think Sue will talk a little bit more about it, but it allows all of the different parties working on these problems to share information, and in so doing, make sure that the people that we're endeavoring to help are properly resourced and guided toward the help that they need.
So it sounds like it's a regional approach rather than just limited to one city. It's not gigantic. That is just something from Sacramento that's an injunction. We must all follow some sort of new model. And it seems to tie together local leaders who are already there, kind of in the community leaders, I'll call them, but as well as elected officials and other public officials. Is that right?
That is correct, and again, that's one of I think the most promising features is there is a ton of expertise and also goodwill that reposited in all these small organizations, and we've tapped that I think in an interesting way that actually has produced really solid results in our community, but also, like I said, could serve as a model.
Well, let's talk about what it's like to herd the wildcats of individuals, organizers, public officials, and people with different agendas. Sue, can you tell us, how the groups actually are brought together? They're not required to, I imagine. This is a purely voluntary effort.
It is. And thank you for having us here. So I represent right now the 10 cities that Senator Newman was talking about. And when we got together, we met in Senator Newman's office, his first office, and back in April of 2017. And it was just a discussion similar to this. And out of that came this Budget Act of 2017, where we received funding for the next 4 years. And we are concluding those 4 years at June 30th. It's upcoming. So we're closing the books on it. So we looked at what the region was currently doing. There's a lot of good work that's being done, but it wasn't coordinated. That's key. It was not coordinated. It was not regionalized. There were a lot of efforts that were being done that no one, even a block away, they didn't even know that that was being done. So coordination was key, and cooperation. We received, and your question was, how did you have them cooperate? I think what we saw was that there are these funds that were bringing us together. And so we're going to work together under the parameters of the funding. And so that's how we brought in our community-based organizations like Letty's. I got to know and enjoy what Letty has done in the last 4 years and has seen her growth. So as Senator Newman talked about Outreach Grid, that's a product that we said we need technology to address the enormity of this issue of homelessness. So we scale up. Human outreach is great, technology outreach together. And again, it's bringing these partnerships together that may otherwise have not known that they should be partnering up to address these issues in a much more intentional way. And then also we knew that we had a hard out, June 30th of 2021, which is coming up. And so when we were funding these community-based organizations, we also wanted them to be poised after 4 years to have that development, the capacity building workshops that we've done, which is board development, marketing, outreach. We had as mom and pop CBOs to national organizations that were much more sophisticated. And yet they all participated in the capacity building workshops so that at the end of the 4 years, they were poised to leverage what they've learned, what they've gained, and continue the funding, because we knew funding was going to end. And funding does not equate everything gets great. It's just the experience and the know-how that we sprinkled upon these very good organizations that were doing great work, but just needed a little bit of help and a helping hand. So that's what we tried to do. And I think we were, at the end of this 4 years, I can confidently say that replication of this model is, you could do this. You could do it. If you were able to gather a few people, you could do this. Innovation, I would say, is Outreach Grid, the technology piece of it, the coordination of these community-based organizations, the capacity building workshops that we've done. And then the other thing was that in the beginning, when we were trying to address homelessness, we all asked, what is really going on in our streets? There's lots of opinions, lots of experts, from my mother to my next door neighbors, all kinds of experts in the full spectrum of things. And so nobody really had an idea of what it is that's really going on in the streets. So we launched a 4-week morning, midday, evening homeless census, a by name registry. This is not point in time. This is not a sampling. This is a count. And from the 1,874 people that we counted, 1,324 people gave up their personal information in the hopes that they would receive some type of resource. To date, we have about 600 people from that 1,324 that have been off the streets. This is not a number. These are actual names of people that we can show you. And so why we want to do that was, what's really going on the streets? What are people on the streets telling us that they need? Not what we think they need. And that is, at the end of the 4 years, why are the remaining people, why are they still on the streets? What happened? Is it that we don't have the resources? Is it because they just don't want those resources? What is it? And so we're hoping that we could shed some light on that. So it was information that we wanted, data, good data.
So we'll come back to that, because I really do want to talk about the achievements you've got to show at the end of almost 4 years now. But let's go to Letty, if we can, Letty Gali. And how did you? Let's do it in the peculiar Catholic school way that I was taught. What was it like? What happened? And what is it like now for you? What are you doing in the community, and how have things changed for you and under this new program?
Well, thank you again for this opportunity to share really what the task force has brought to Lot 318. It's just been an incredible transformation for us. I'll go back.
And I just want to be clear. Pardon me for interrupting, but Lot 318 is your organization. I ought to have said that. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I didn't. Maybe you can tell us about what that organization is.
Sorry. Yes. So the name of our organization is Lot 318. It stands for Loving Others in Truth. So are you going to be there in the good times and in the hard times? Yes, we will be there with you and for you. We just won't put up with the shenanigans, as we would say, right? We're going to walk you through life, walk with you, and be there for you and with you. So that's kind of who we are. But about 4 years ago, well, a little over 4 years ago, our chief of police, Darren Lenny, called me in and said, hey, think of ways that we can enforce what Lot 318 is already doing, dream big. And so he challenged me to do that. And I'm thinking, okay. So Placentia, let me just share a little bit about the past. Placentia is known for 3 rival gangs, right? So we have La Jolla, Atwood, and the Plaza Street gangs. And Lot 318 serves in the La Jolla community of Placentia. The La Jolla community is an at-risk community with limited resources and a large presence of the La Jolla Street Gang, which, by the way, is one of the oldest gangs in North Orange County. Our families are afraid to walk the streets. They definitely don't let their children walk alone. And what we serve, Lot 318 serves in the La Jolla community in a cul-de-sac area. And since serving the families for the last 16 years in this cul-de-sac and the surrounding neighborhoods, we have seen the crime rate reduced to a minimal. Now, please understand that this cul-de-sac was once controlled by the La Jolla Street Gang. So you wouldn't go into this cul-de-sac without police escort. It was a very dangerous street. So with our limited funding, we knew that with just a little bit of help, we can achieve so much more. So you can only imagine the task force is exactly what Lot 318 needed to continue the work in the community. So because of the task, I'll share a little bit of things. We've been able to collaborate with other agencies. We've had interns from USC come out with a master's program to help do counseling with our children. The task force has provided, finally, a physical place for us to host multiple events. We now have a resource center where we have parent meetings, weekly group counseling. We have a place for our teens to feel safe, tutoring for our high school students. And that's just a little bit of what we do at our resource center. Having our resource center has been a game changer for Lot 318, because our community now knows they have a place to ask questions, they have a place to get resources, especially this past year during the COVID-19. The task force is very instrumental to Lot 318. We would not be where we are today because without the support of the task force. We are aware that we realize that the areas in where we serve is surrounded by sharks, okay? And if we let down our guards, the sharks will come in and attack and take over. And all the work and changes for the last 16 years will be gone. So we must stand firm in the areas that we're currently in, and we also want to extend it. Our children, our kids are no longer thinking, what gang am I going to join? Sorry.
Wow.
Instead, hold on, I'm not done. Instead, they're saying, which college or trade school am I going to go to? It's huge.
Yeah.
That is. Letty, what's the relationship between your organization and law enforcement explicitly? Like what I see this, if you'll pardon me for just, I'm an outsider, but it sounds like the kind of thing that is more, I would say, crime prevention. Like it really intervenes at a point in the system before people might be so far down that road that it's perhaps too late in some cases.
100%. We realized that at one time at junior high, you want to reach out to kids, right? But we're realizing we need to reach out to them in elementary school. And so we focus on the family as a unit, okay? We have education for our elementary kids, but when it comes to the law enforcement connection, I have been meeting with the Placenta Police Department for 16 years. You know, I was there when it was, you know, very difficult and dangerous cul-de-sac. And at that time, the Placenta PD was doing community policing on bicycles. And a police officer would say, well, what are you doing here? I'm thinking, well, I'm supposed to be here. I got introduced to this community and I could not sleep at night because of what I witnessed. And I knew something had to be done. And so the police officer like, okay, right, whatever, you know, people come and go. Well, 2 months later, this officer comes by and says, you're still here. I go, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And she's like, well, we notice there's a difference in the crime rate in this community. How can we partner together? And I'm telling you, probably on a weekly basis, I would meet with the chief of police and talk about what is happening in the community. How can we make it better? What events can we do to provide a place for these kids that are just looking for a place to be accepted and to be seen, right? To be heard, to be loved. Once you can come around that, life changes.
Sue, are there other examples of organizations like Letty's that are doing work perhaps in the same issue? Or you mentioned homelessness earlier. It sounds like, Letty, you're more involved in kind of youth assistance, I'll call it for lack of a better word. But do you have other groups like this that are kind of nonprofit organizations that just need a little bit of help and coaching, perhaps a little bit of assistance?
Yes, we have about 48 organizations.
Wow.
And again, youth violence prevention intervention is one focus area. The second focus area is reentry services, and the third is homeless outreach. What was surprising to the chiefs as we started entering into the task force into the years were that they knew about these organizations, but didn't know about the organizations in the way that you just heard from Letty. And the partnership between law enforcement agencies and organizations like Letty's has just been much more strengthened. It's a partnership that isn't just by name, but by action.
Powerful position to be in. So, Senator, you're coming up on the 4-year deadline, I guess, and you're going to have to go back to your colleagues in the State House and make the pitch. I'd like you to think about two things with me, if you would. What would you say? You know, you're in a fairly conservative county. I say fairly. We're more purpley now than we have been. What would you say to people who say, well, you know, this isn't really a role for government. This is something that should be handled voluntarily through churches and families. Maybe you can start with that, and then I have a follow-up on that, if I may.
I think that's a good question. So, I think you had Sheriff Barnes as a guest on one of the other discussions, and you know, clearly these are problems that have defied easy solution for many years. In fact, they've gotten worse, and they also defy, as we've discussed, kind of municipal borders, right? I mean, you know, these are things that you know, kind of easily bleed over, kind of run across a whole bunch of different cities. And so what we've deliberately tried to do here was to create a framework for developing kind of smarter approaches, and then also for alignment. And Sue has spoken to that. But I will say between Sue Kang and Chief Sainz and the other chiefs, it has been immensely encouraging. You know, there's a stereotype of the police as kind of you know, this kind of siloed organization. They do public safety, but not other things. This is proof, I think, that our experience, and Sue has touched on it, and I think Letty as well, that if we can create a better framework and we can better align the community and also our public safety resources within the community, and they're part of our community, you can do so much more with the same amount of money. And so as we get ready to make the case, or I'm already deeply involved in making the case to augment and extend this program, it's been really well received because this model clearly has value. This experience clearly has shown some really positive results. And so not only is it good for our area, but I think it provides a really interesting roadmap for other jurisdictions as well.
Well, one of the things that I like about it is that it goes beyond simple bumper stickers sorts of notions, public policy pronouncements of let's just love each other, or defund the police, or back the badge and be tough on crime. It's fairly nuanced in the approach. Do you think that in this highly politicized environment, not that America has ever been unpoliticized, those of us who study history know this for a fact, it has always been thus. But you're in this particular time when there is a lot of antagonism among at least a small group of very vociferous people. Mm-hmm. I wonder, Senator, if you can address specifically the kind of get tough on crime folks as well as the defund the police people.
Well, and again, I think we've kind of stumbled upon a middle ground here. And I think the proof of that is in the relationships that the 10 different chiefs of police have developed with organizations like Letty's over the last 4 years. And that's truly groundbreaking, right? And I think as folks have mentioned, they were vaguely aware of each other, but they'd never had cause to work with each other. And not only do they now know each other, but they can actually, each of those two sides of the equation can guide the other on better approaches, but probably just importantly, a better understanding of their respective orientations, but their relationships with the community, kind of against their goals.
Thanks, Senator. There's so much more here we could talk about. We got to get the Senator on an airplane so that he can get back home.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for joining us. It's just been an absolutely wonderful day for me to talk to the district attorney and find out his perspective. We talked to the sheriff about, I think, the tightrope that you got to walk there when you're the sheriff dealing with a multitude of problems that you guys are dealing with in your own organization. So thank you for your work. To the audience out there, I hope you found the conversations today valuable. I think especially meeting this last group of people shows us there's a way for all of us, we ordinary citizens who aren't in public office, who aren't in a police department somewhere. We ordinary citizens who might have something to give. I think Letty offers us some inspiration for that. We don't have to do it full time. I think, Letty, is that correct? We could come by and we can volunteer.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah. So thank you guys for that. I want to also thank the OC Forum for inviting me to moderate this conversation, for setting this whole thing up, for UCI and for UCI Health for sponsoring it. Thanks also to the participants, of course, not just these guys, but the district attorney, Todd Spitzer, and Sheriff Don Barnes. And thanks most of all to you, of course, for paying attention and being in this conversation with us. All the best, stay safe, and love your neighbors.